Let's go ahead and open up with a prayer and get into our study for tonight. Lord, just pray that you would instruct us and teach us through your word. You would reprove us and correct us where necessary, and just pray that we'd have open hearts and open minds to see what you have for us in your word and the lessons that are here, the things that happened and were written for our instruction. Amen. Okay, so last week we studied the story of Samson, and with the conclusion of his story is the end of the chronological timeline in the book of Judges. He is the last judge that is brought before us in the book of Judges, and we will not pick up again with the biblical chronological timeline until we get into the book of 1 Samuel with Eli and his sons and Samuel. From now, we have a couple of stories that we're going to be looking at tonight to finish out the book of Judges, and then the book of Ruth, which is 4 chapters. The next book between Judges and Samuel is also a story that happened during the time period of the Judges, and is largely brought before us for the purposes of bringing forward the lineage of Jesus during this time period, and bringing before us the grandfather of King David as he comes about. But as we start in chapter 17 tonight, we are going to be presented with a couple of what I like to think of as case studies that show the absolute degradation of a society, which comes about when every man is doing what is right in his own eyes. We've seen throughout the whole book of Judges so far that the people did what was wicked in the eyes of the Lord, and now it's going to show us on the other side that these people are doing what is right in their own eyes, and that is opposed to what is right in the Lord's eyes, and the absolute moral decay and infighting and brutality that leads to among a people. So we'll go ahead and jump in. Chapter 17, verse 1 says that there was a man in the hill country of Ephraim whose name was Micah. And he said to his mother, the 1,100 pieces of silver that were taken from you, about which you uttered a curse, and also spoke it in my ears, behold, the silver is with me. I took it. And his mother said, blessed be my son by the Lord. So we have another circumstance brought before us of an example of a foolish vow or a foolish curse. We've been seeing this a lot. And so this woman had set aside a large amount of silver. She had not told her son what the purpose of it was, but he stole the silver from her. And then she cursed whoever stole it. And it seems like that may have weighed on him. And so he told his mom, you kind of cursed me because I'm the one that took your silver. And so she tries to fix it by blessing him of the Lord. And, it's basically a foolish curse that is followed up by a foolish blessing. So he restores, in verse 3, the 1,100 pieces of silver to his mother. And his mother said, I dedicate this silver to the Lord. So this is a woman who is speaking of Jehovah. And it is really important for us to remember as we're going through this that these stories are put before us as examples of what is wrong in the eyes of the Lord. So I don't want anybody to get confused about this and think that these people are doing what they're doing at the instruction of the Lord. They're, even though they say they're dedicating it to the Lord, that does not mean that the Lord is intending for them to do this. That is their own foolish desire that is leading them in this way. So she dedicates the silver to the Lord and puts it in the hand of her son to make a carved image and a metal image. So these people are seeking after an idol. They are intending to worship the Lord, but evidently they have lost the feeling of the presence or connection of God in their own lives. They have walked away from their, relationship with the Lord that was intended, a relationship of offering and sacrifice and prayer. And they are, instead of going to the place that the Lord has set up for his name to dwell, they have decided to set up a shrine in their own household with these little images that they make that are supposed to represent God, and they are going to worship them in their own house. So they are, breaking basically the first 3 commandments that the Lord gave the Israelites. And interestingly, also the first commandment that the Israelites broke all the way back at Mount Sinai. So they're going to make a carved image and a metal image. And these images lived in the house of Micah. And the man Micah had a shrine, and he made an ephod and household gods, and ordained one of his sons who became his priest. In those days, there was no king in Israel, and everyone did what was right in his own eyes. Now, this is something that if the people of Israel were following the laws of God, and if there was a ruler in the land of Israel, this family would have been found out and they would have been put to death because they were breaking the law of God. They were worshiping carved and molten images in their homes. And the Lord is explicit about that. If this is found out, even if you find out that your best friend is doing this, you have to report them and they have to be put to death by the people. And in fact, if you knew that the person was doing this and you didn't tell on them, you were to be put to death as well. So the Lord took this very, very seriously. And so this is a encapsulation of what the people of Israel are doing. They're doing what is right in their own eyes, walking away from their relationship with Jehovah. Now, there was a young man of Bethlehem in Judah, of the family of Judah, who was a Levite, and he sojourned there. And the man departed down from the town of Bethlehem in Judah to sojourn wherever he could find a place. And as he journeyed, he came to the hill country of Ephraim, to the house of Micah. And Micah said to him, "Where do you come from?" And he said to him, "I am a Levite of Bethlehem in Judah, and I am going to sojourn where I may find a place." So this Levite is going on walkabout. He's going away from where he's supposed to be. The Levites are to be ministering in their hometown where they are planted, or they are to be going to the tabernacle, to the place where the Lord's name is to dwell, to minister before him. So this guy is wandering from where he's supposed to be. So Micah said to him, verse 10, "Stay with me and be to me a father and a priest, and I will give you 10 pieces of silver a year and a suit of clothes for your living." And the Levite went in, and the Levite was content to dwell with the man. And the young man became to him like one of his sons. And Micah ordained the Levite, and the young man became a priest and was in the house of Micah. And then Micah said, "Now I know that the Lord will prosper me because I have a Levite as a priest." Hello. So I think it's interesting that the Lord puts before us that this man is ordained a priest by Micah. That shows us the futility of all of this, because the only one that can be ordained as a priest is one who is ordained by God. And this man, Micah, has no ability or power to ordain anyone as a priest. And so everything that he is doing in his walking away from relationship with God to enter into religion is a false premise. There's nothing real or true about what he's doing here, but he's doing it to seek his own gain. He is wanting to worship God in his household in a way that God said that he would not be worshiped, in order for the Lord to bless him with wealth, riches, and success. So everything about what this man is doing is futile, but it's also somewhat a picture of what the people of Israel are constantly doing in their relationship with the Lord, walking away from the way that he said that he is to be worshiped and trying to approach God on their own terms. Now, that is an interesting picture for most of the world today. Almost everyone, a huge majority of people have this innate desire to worship and to have a God or a master to serve. And, there are some that come to God through Jesus Christ the way that we are all supposed to come. Jesus says, "I'm the way, the truth, and the life. No one can come to the Father except through me." Now, that had not happened yet for the people of Israel, but God had prescribed for them a way to come to him. And so just as these men, Micah and this priest, are trying to come to God in their own way for their own reasons, that is kind of a picture not only of Israel, but of the majority of the world today that have a desire to be justified and to be right with a God. They are sure, as Paul talks about in Romans, that there is a God. It's evident to everyone that there is a God. But the majority of people on earth want to come to God in their own way. And that's kind of a picture of what we're seeing here. They don't want to follow the narrow path. They want to choose their own path to follow God. So that's what Micah and his priest, who we're going to see his name is Jonathan, that is what they are doing. So continuing on, chapter 18 says, in those days, there was no king in Israel. So, again, a picture of, a country without leadership. And it's especially important when it says that because God was to be the king over Israel. And, it's easy to look at that when you think of it through that lens and, it sounds like God had abandoned his people, that he was no longer there. And that's not the point at all. That's not what it's saying. What it's saying is there was no king in Israel in the physical sense, that they had not had a king yet, and that the people no longer acknowledged God as their king. And so they were, again, doing what was right in their own eyes. In those days, the tribe of the people of Dan was seeking for itself an inheritance to dwell in. For until then, it had no inheritance among the tribes of Israel, then none had fallen to them. So this is early in the period of the judges. It could even be in the days of Joshua, but it doesn't say that specifically. The people of Dan were allotted a place that was supposed to be their own, but they never took possession of it because they were afraid of the people that were there. And so what we're going to see here is a little bit of the story of them going and taking possession of a different place and renaming this other place after their ancestor Dan. So we're pretty early in the period of the judges. Verse 2 says that the people of Dan sent 5 able men from the whole number of their tribe, from Zorah and from Eshtaol, to spy out the land and to explore it. So we're still kind of in the period of sending spies into the land to figure out where they want to be. They said to them, go and explore the land. And they came to the hill country of Ephraim, to the house of Micah, and they lodged there. When they were by the house of Micah, they recognized the voice of the young Levite. And they turned aside to him and said, who brought you here? What are you doing in this place? And what is your business here? And he said to them, this is how Micah dealt with me. He has hired me, and I have become his priest. And they said to him, inquire of God, please, that we may know whether the journey that we are on is meant to succeed. And the priest said to them, go in peace. The journey on which you go is under the eye of the Lord. Now, there are many examples throughout the Old Testament of so-called priests or prophets speaking prophecy in the name of the Lord, and the Lord saying, I did not send them, and I did not put my words in their mouth. So just because this man is a Levite, because Micah has ordained him to be a priest of his false gods, that does not mean that when he speaks a word on behalf of the Lord, that God had anything to do with it. One way or the other, there's nothing saying that this is actually a word from the Lord. This is a word from the priest of Micah. So the 5 men departed and came to Laish and saw the people who were there, how they lived in security after the manner of the Sidonians. So Sidon is a major Phoenician port city on the coast of Israel, one of the most powerful city-states in the ancient, Middle East. It was a very, very powerful and wealthy people that lived there. So they're living after the manner of the Sidonians, quiet and unsuspecting, lacking nothing that is in the earth, and possessing wealth, and how they were far from the Sidonians and had no dealings with anyone. So this seemingly is probably a outcast colony of Sidon. That's what the context would be telling us, that they live in the manner of the Sidonians, which means they, at least likely the founder of that city was Sidonian and set up the way that they lived, but they don't have any dealings with Sidon, which would mean it's likely not an outpost of Sidon, because they're not having any communication. It's likely somebody who was cast away from their society and had to go start a life somewhere else. So verse 8 says that they came to their brothers at Zorah, so these would be the spies, and at Eshtaol. Their brothers said to them, what do you report? And they said, arise and let us go up against them, for we have seen the land, and it is very good. And will you do nothing? Don't be slow to go to enter in and possess the land. As soon as you go, you will come to an unsuspecting people. The land is spacious, for God has given it into your hands, a place where there is no lack of anything that is in the earth. So 600 men of the tribe of Dan, armed with weapons of war, set out from Zorah and Eshtal and went up and encamped at Kiriath Jearim in Judah. On this account, that place is called Mehen Dan to this day, which means a camp of Dan. Behold, it is west of Kiriath Jearim. And they passed on from there to the hill country of Ephraim and came to the house of Micah. So this is a popular house for people to stop by on their travels. The 5 men who had gone to scout the country of Laish said to their brothers, "Do you know what is in this house, that there is an ephod and household gods and a carved image and a metal image? Now, therefore, consider what we should do." So what they should have done is followed the law of God and enacted justice on God's behalf and taken care of these gods and taken care of the people that made them. I'm just going to give these 5 guys the benefit of the doubt and think that's what they were thinking, that we need to clean up this mess while we're going by here. But instead, in verse 15, it says, they turned aside there and came to the house of the young Levite, the home of Micah, and asked about his welfare. Now the 600 men of the Danites, armed with their weapons of war, stood by the entrance of the gate. And the 5 men who had gone to scout out the land went up and entered, and they took the carved images and the ephod, the household gods, the metal images, while the priest stood at the entrance of the gate with 600 men armed with weapons of war. And when these went into Micah's house and took the carved image, the ephod, and the household gods, and the metal image, and the priest said to them, "What are you doing?" They said to him, "Keep quiet and put your hand on your mouth, and come with us and be to us a father and a priest. Is it better for you to be a priest in the house of one man, or to be a priest to a tribe and a clan of Israel?" And the priest's heart was glad, and he took the ephod and the household gods and the carved image and went along with the people. So again, a picture of the downfall of the moral standards of Israel. Instead of doing what the Lord instructed them, they saw opportunity, and they grabbed the opportunity, and they decided to get for themselves some gods. And the priest's heart was glad because he got, I'm sure, a pay raise and a promotion from being a priest to one household to a whole clan of people. Verse 21 says, they turned and departed, putting the little ones and the livestock and the goods in front of them. When they had gone a distance from the home of Micah, the men who were in the houses near Micah's house were called out, and they overtook the people of Dan. So, normally in this context, when we see, the people of Israel marching, they're putting the Ark of the Covenant and the warriors in the front and the women and children in the back. That's when they are expecting for there to be trouble in the front. But these guys are running away from trouble because they stole this guy's gods and his priest. So they're putting the women and children in the front, and all the guys of war are staying in the back. And so all the households around Micah are called out by Micah to come against them to try and get his priest and his gods back from them. So it says, verse 23, they shouted to the people of Dan, who turned around and said to Micah, "What's the matter with you that you come with such a company?" And he said, "You took my gods that I made and the priest to go away with and you go away. What have I left? And then you ask me, what is the matter with you?" And the people of Dan said to him, "Do not let your voice be heard among us, lest angry fellows fall upon you and you lose your life with the lives of your household." Then the people of Dan went their way, and when Micah saw that they were too strong for him, he turned and went back to his home. So this is a funny situation that these peoples are fighting over gods that can be picked up and carted away. That's somewhat of a problem for your image of your own God, if that God can be picked up and taken away by 5 guys. He, just as in the days of Gideon tears down the altar of Baal, and Gideon's father says, let Baal contend for himself if he is a God. This is a picture of the fact that these gods are nothing. As it said that, you find a tree and you cut down the tree. You take some of the tree and make yourself a fire. You take some of the tree and you cook your food on it, and you take the rest of the tree and you carve out an image to bow down to in front of your fire. That's kind of problematic, right? That the same God that you are worshiping is the God that you threw into the fire to cook your food. It's a picture of the falsehood of these gods that these men are able to pick them up and take off with them, and the gods have no ability to contend for themselves because they're unreal. They're fake. There's no substance to them. But verse 27, the people of Dan took what Micah had made and the priest who belonged to him, and they came to Laish, to the people, quiet and unsuspecting, and struck them with the edge of the sword and burned their city with fire. And there was no deliverer because it was far from Sidon, and they had no dealings with anyone. It was in the valley that belongs to Beth Rehob, and they rebuilt the city and lived in it, and they named the city Dan, after the name of Dan, their ancestor, who was born to Israel. But the name of the city was Laish at first. And the people of Dan set up the carved images for themselves. And Jonathan, the son of Gershom, the son of Moses, and his sons were priests to the tribe of the Danites until the day of captivity in the land. So they set up Micah's carved image that he made as long as the house of God was at Shiloh. So I'm sure that some people's Bible translations, it does not say Jonathan, the son of Gershom, the son of Moses. Is there anybody who you have Manasseh? Is that what's in your Bible? Okay. So what the explanation that I have found for this is that the ancient rabbinic scholars did not like the fact that Moses' grandson was an idolatrous priest. And in the Hebrew language, even though Moses and Manasseh look very different in English, there is only one little jot, or is it a tittle? I don't remember which it is. But there's only one little kind of floating line in the middle of the word that changes it from Manasseh to Moses. And it's believed, because the problem is that Gershom is the son of Moses. That's who this is. And Manasseh is not recorded as having a son named Gershom. So modern scholarship is very certain that this is the grandson of Moses, and that the rabbinic scholars wanted to, what I saw was lift the reproof from Moses by changing his name to Manasseh. But that doesn't make any sense because this man is a Levite, not a Manasseh, not a son of Joseph. So all that being said, they made him their priest in the city of Dan, and they were doing all this as long as God was worshipped at Shiloh. Now, Dan is going to be the first tribe that is ultimately taken and destroyed by the enemies of the people of Israel because they were the first to institutionalize idol worship in their territory. They will be a reproach to God. And interestingly, because of that, a lot of the times that we see the numbering of the tribes of Israel, in which there are only 12 numbered, even though there are 13 names of the tribes of Israel, Dan is often left out because of the Lord's disregard for them because of their bringing idolatry into the land of Israel. So in that case, it would be the other 10 brothers in Ephraim and Manasseh that are numbered, and Dan is left out. So just a little interesting thing to note that God, yes?
Who was his mother? Who was Dan's mother?
Oh, don't. I will have to figure that. I don't know that off the top of my head. Matt's going to figure it out. It's in Genesis chapter 30 and 31. Okay, so for chapter 19, verse 1. In those days, this is going to be real interesting, y'all. Again, a reminder, this is all here to show the moral failings of the people of Israel in this time and how bad things got. So in those days when there was no king in Israel, a certain Levite was sojourning in the remote parts of the hill country of Ephraim. He took for himself a concubine from Bethlehem in Judah. So that is problematic from the very beginning. The Levites were not to have concubines. They were to be a man of one wife. They were servants of the people of God. But he took for himself a concubine. And his concubine was unfaithful to him. She went away from him to her father's house at Bethlehem in Judah and was there for some 4 months. Then her husband arose and went after her to speak kindly with her and bring her back. So a concubine, the reason it calls this man her husband is because a concubine is, in amongst the people of Israel, considered to be a less favored wife or a second wife. So technically, there is a husband and wife kind of situation, but he is not she would not be the wife through who the man's lineage would go, essentially. But he is still called her husband. So he arose and went after her to speak kindly to her and bring her back. He had with him his servant and a couple of donkeys, and she brought him into her father's house. And when the girl's father saw him, he came with joy to meet him. And his father-in-law, the girl's father, made him stay, and he remained with him 3 days. So they ate and drank and spent the night there. And on the 4th day, they arose early in the morning, and he prepared to go. But the girl's father said to the son-in-law, "Strengthen your heart with a morsel of bread, and after that you may go on your way." So the two of them sat and ate and drank together. And the girl's father said to the man, "Be pleased to spend the night, and let your heart be merry." And when the man rose up to go, his father-in-law pressed him till he spent the night there again. And on the 5th day he arose to go early in the morning to depart. And the girl's father said, "Strengthen your heart and wait until the day declines." So they ate, both of them. And when the man and his concubine and servant rose up to depart, the father-in-law, the girl's father, said to him, "Behold, now the day is waned towards evening. Please spend the night. Behold, the day draws to its close. Lodge here and let your heart be merry. And tomorrow you shall arise early in the morning and go home." But the man would not spend the night. So he's figured out how this is going, and he is ready to leave. So he rose up and departed and arrived opposite Jebus, that is Jerusalem. So at this time, being both relatively small villages, Bethlehem and Jerusalem are about 5 miles apart. So they're not that far. So he's kind of left in the evening, and he's able to make a 5-mile journey on his donkeys, but he's ready to find a place to bed down for the night. He had with him a couple of saddled donkeys, and his concubine was with him. When they were near Jebus, the day was nearly over, and the servant said to his master, "Come, now let us turn aside to this city of the Jebusites and spend the night in it." And his master said to him, "We will not turn aside to the city of foreigners who do not belong to the people of Israel, but we will pass on to Gibeah." So this Levite, who is in a pretty major position of moral compromise, is still feeling kind of high and mighty over the people, the inhabitants of the land at this point. And he still is, even though he is putting himself in the position that he's in, he still feels a moral superiority and kind of uppityness against the people that are in the land. So he decides to keep going to a city that belongs to the Israelites, and that would be Gibeah. He said to his young man, "Come, let us draw near to one of these places and spend the night at Gibeah or at Ramah." So they passed on and went their way, and the sun went down on them near Gibeah, which belongs to Benjamin. They turned aside there to go in and spend the night at Gibeah, and they went in and sat down in the open square of the city, for no one took them into his house to spend the night. So that is a pretty major taboo among the people of the Middle East at this time. There weren't really evidence of hotels or inns that you could just go stay in. And so it was the moral obligation of the people when they see a sojourner to invite them into their house for the night. So, this is just kind of another picture of everyone doing what was right in their own eyes, and kind of their love and affection for others growing cold and just caring for themselves. And maybe a hint of things to come. Verse 16 says, "Behold, an old man was coming from his work in the field at evening. The man was from the hill country of Ephraim, and he was sojourning in Gibeah. The men of the place were Benjaminites. And he lifted up his eyes and saw the traveler in the open square of the city. And the old man said, 'Where are you going, and from where do you come?' And he said to them, 'We are passing from Bethlehem to Judah to the remote parts of the hill country of Ephraim, from which I come. I went to Bethlehem in Judah, and am going to the house of the Lord. But no one has taken me into his house. We have straw and feed for our donkeys, with bread and wine for me and your female servant and the young man. There is no lack of anything.' And the old man said, 'Peace be with you. I will care for all your wants. Only do not spend the night in the square.'" So this old man has an idea of the character of the people of this city. He does not want them spending the night in the middle of town, because he knows that something bad is going to befall them. He brings them into his house and gave the donkeys feed, and they washed their feet, and they ate and they drank. As they were making their hearts merry, behold, the men of the city, worthless fellows, surrounded the house, beating on the door. And they said to the old man, the master of the house, "Bring out the man who came into your house, that we may know him." So this is a familiar situation that the Lord is putting before us. And why is this put before us? It is a reminder of why the Lord is going to enact justice upon his people of Israel in the centuries to come. this is a interesting kind of parallel situation to what happened in the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah when the angels of the Lord came to visit Lot. And the men of Sodom and Gomorrah did the exact same thing. They said the same thing: bring the men out so that we may know them. They wanted to have sexual relations or homosexual relationships with these men. And, this is astounding that this is same evil happening among the people of the Lord very early on in the history of Israel when they have come into the land. And it's also an interesting kind of forbearance that the Lord has, that he is not raining down judgment upon his people at the same time. So the men of the city are totally depraved and are insisting on having the man given out to them. So verse 23 says, the man, the master of the house, went out to them and said to them, no, my brothers, do not act so wickedly, since this man has come into my house. Do not do this vile thing. Behold, here are my virgin daughter and his concubine. Let me bring them out now. Violate them and do with them what seems good to you, but against this man do nothing, or do not do this outrageous thing. But the men would not listen to him. So the man, so this would be the Levite, seized his concubine and made her go out to them. And they knew her and abused her all night until the morning. And as the dawn began to break, they let her go. So, this shows a really, on both sides, a lack of moral character in these men. On the one hand, there is the absolute mixed up priorities that the man of the house has in this situation. He is under the cultural obligation to protect the person that came into his house, even over his family. So he is willing to have his daughter sent out to these violent men. And on the other hand, this Levite is, he has done a total 180 from where he was. He was seeking after this woman because he evidently loved her, apparently, or, had a desire for her. And now when his own safety is on the line, he is treating her as property or as bait, basically, to get these men to leave him alone. So again, there's not much to say about this other than that this is a showcase of the absolute lack of morality that the people of Israel had in this time where they were all doing what was right in their own eyes. So as the morning appeared, verse 26, the woman came and fell down at the door of the man's house where his master was until it was light. And her master rose up in the morning, and when he opened the door of the house, he went out to go on his way. And behold, there was his concubine laying at the door of the house with her hands on the threshold. And he said to her, get up, let us be going. But there was no answer. So that is a simple way of saying that she died. She had been abused to the point that she gave up all hope and, all reason to live and chose to die. Hey, Chris.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's all good. It's good to see you. So this man is showing obviously an absolute lack of any kind of care or love for this woman, and is completely absorbed with a love of himself. So he says the end of verse 28 says he put her on his donkey, and the man rose up and went away to his home. And when he entered his house, he took a knife, and taking hold of his concubine, he divided her limb by limb into 12 pieces and sent her throughout all the territory of Israel. And all who saw it said, such a thing has never happened or been seen from the day that the people of Israel came up out of the land of Egypt until this day. Consider it and take counsel and speak. So this is an interesting word choice, this divided, that is put in here. This is a word in the original Hebrew that was used for when the Levites were to take a sacrifice and divide it and burn it before the Lord. So it's a very specific word to like a sacrificial act, basically. And so he is obviously taking her and doing this in order to, basically get the rest of the tribes of Israel to pay attention to his complaint against the evil of the men of Benjamin in Gibeah. So all the people of Israel came out from Dan to Beersheba, including the land of Gilead, and the congregation of Israel as one man to the Lord at Mizpah. And the chiefs of all the people of the tribes of Israel presented themselves in the assembly of the people of God, 400,000 men that drew the sword. Now the people of Benjamin heard that the people of Israel had gone up to Mizpah, and the people of Israel said, "Tell us, how did this evil happen?" And the Levite, the husband of the woman who was murdered, answered and said, "I came to Gibeah that belongs to Benjamin. My concubine and I spent the night. And the leaders of Gibeah rose against me, surrounded the house against me by night, and meant to kill me, and they violated my concubine, and she is dead. I took hold of her, cut her into pieces, and sent her throughout the country of the inheritance of Israel, for they have committed abomination and outrage in Israel. Behold, you people of Israel, all give your advice and counsel here." And the people of Israel arose as one man, saying, "None of us will go to his tent, and none will return to his house. But now this is what we will do to Gibeah. We will go up against it by lot, and will take 10 men of 100 throughout all the tribes of Israel, 100 of 1,000, and 1,000 of 10,000, to bring provisions for the people. And when they come, they may repay Gibeah of Benjamin for the outrage that they have committed in Israel." So all the men of Israel gathered against the city, united as one man. So we are presented with a situation that is lacking a major component. And the major component that is lacking is any seeking of the Lord's will in this situation. They have decided that they are going to fight, that they are going to punish, that they are going to go up by lot, and evidently they have decided in their hearts that God is going to bless it, whether he wants to or not. They are doing what is right in their own eyes. That is what's happening here. And this is going to be a situation that compounds damage upon damage, death upon death, and hurt upon hurt. Now, that does not mean, in my opinion, that God didn't want the people of Gibeah punished. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is that the people of Israel are going out presumptuously. The last time that we saw them going out presumptuously was after the defeat of Jericho. They went ahead to Ai without seeking out the Lord, and the men were killed because they went out presumptuously without seeking the advice and wisdom of the Lord. So that is happening again in this situation. So verse 12 says that the tribes of Israel sent men through all the tribe of Benjamin, saying, "What is the evil that has taken place among you? Now therefore give up the men, the worthless fellows in Gibeah, that we may put them to death and purge evil from Israel." But the Benjaminites would not listen to the voice of their brothers, the people of Israel, and the people of Benjamin came together out of the cities of Gibeah to go to battle against the people of Israel. Now, an interesting thing to note here is that this man divided this woman into 12 pieces, which means that he sent a piece of her body to the tribe of Benjamin as well. They were given the opportunity to come out against Gibeah and to do justice on behalf of this man and the wrong that was done to him and to his concubine. But obviously they are stiff-necked against the rest of the people of Israel, and they are unwilling to give up this city inside of their borders to be put to the sword or punished by the rest of the people of Israel. Verse 15 says the people of Benjamin mustered out of their cities on that day 26,000 men who drew the sword, besides the inhabitants of Gibeah, who mustered 700 chosen men. Among all these were 700 chosen men who were left-handed, and everyone could sling a stone at a hair and not miss. And the men of Israel, apart from Benjamin, mustered 400,000 men who drew the sword, and all were men of war. So we have a situation here where we have about 25,000 against 400,000. And on the face of it, that is not good odds. It does seem to be pointing out that there are, specially trained, maybe kind of sniper special operation kind of guys in this, 700 guys that fight the same way as King David fights, interestingly, in his great victory against the giant. But they are men who, rather than fighting with the sword or with the bow and arrow, which did exist at the time, they choose to fight with stones and a sling. So now the people of Israel arose and went up to Bethel and inquired of God, "Who shall go up for us to fight against the people of Benjamin?" And the Lord said, "Judah shall go up first." Now we're encountering a really interesting situation here where they did not inquire of God whether they should be doing this at all, but they are going to inquire of God in a specific kind of way. Like, if we're going to do what we want to do, what's the best way for us to do it? Now, it's, kind of confusing, honestly, depending on how you want to look at it, that the Lord is going to give the people of Israel instruction on how to go to battle. He's not telling them not to, but the instruction that he is giving them ultimately is going to lead to the deaths of tens of thousands of their own soldiers. So the Lord is allowing them to go into battle without granting them his success. Now, there is a broad spectrum of interpretations of why this might have happened. The interpretation that I like the most is that we don't know all the ways of God. He did it because he did it, and we don't know why, because he didn't tell us why he did it. But the Lord's ways are unsearchable, and the justice of God is unsearchable. That's one explanation. Another explanation that makes sense to me is that these men are going and doing what they want to do, and they're kind of asking God for some tactical advice. But when it comes down to it, they're not asking God to lead them into battle. They're just asking him to give them the best success possible, but not asking whether it's his will for them to be doing it at all. And then there are opinions that run the gambit between that. And honestly, I don't have the answer for why exactly God would instruct his people on how to go to battle, but not give them victory. But either way, that's one of the things for us as Christians that produce faith. Because if we were able to understand everything that God does and says on an intellectual, logical basis, there would be no room left for faith in our relationship with him. And so the bottom line is, regardless of why God did this the way that he did it because he is unsearchable, and his justice and righteousness are unsearchable. And that's where our faith comes in not thinking that I can instruct God on how to be just or righteous, but just know and believe and have faith in my heart that the ways of God are just and they are righteous. And he did this the way that he did it because it was right. So all of that being said, the people of Israel, verse 19, arose in the morning and encamped against Gibeah. The men of Israel went out to fight against Benjamin, and the men of Israel drew up the battle line against them at Gibeah. The people of Benjamin came out of Gibeah to destroyed on that day 22,000 men of the Israelites. But the men of Israel took courage again and formed the battle line in the same place where they had formed it on the first day. The people of Israel went up and wept before the Lord until the evening, and they inquired of the Lord, shall we again draw near to fight against our brothers, the people of Benjamin? And the Lord said, go up against them. So the people of Israel came near against the people of Benjamin the second day, and Benjamin went up against them out of the camp of Gibeah the second day and destroyed 18,000 men. So we're at 40,000 men of the people of Israel who were destroyed. All of these were men who drew the sword. Then all the people of Israel, the whole army, went up and came to Bethel and wept. And I should have been clear about this from the beginning, but Bethel is in this situation not a place. They are in Shiloh, but Bethel in Hebrew means the house of the Lord. So they're going to the tabernacle, to the house of the Lord to inquire of him. But for whatever reason, in my translation at least, it put it here as Bethel, which is the name of a different city, but they're at Shiloh at the house of the Lord, just to clear that up. So all the people of Israel, the whole army, went and wept. They sat before the Lord and fasted that day until evening and offered burnt offerings and peace offerings before the Lord. Verse 27, all the people of Israel inquired of the Lord, for the ark of the covenant of God was there in those days, and Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, son of Aaron, ministered before it in those days. So that gives us a really interesting picture of where this is in the chronological history. This is very early in the period of the Judges, when Phinehas would be, just the next two generations down from Aaron. So this was, maybe a few years to, 20 or 30 years after the time that Joshua had died. So this was very early on that these people are just going their own way and creating this civil war inside of the land of Israel. So Phinehas inquires of the Lord, and they say, shall we once more go to battle against our brothers? And the Lord said, go, tomorrow I will give them into your hands. So Israel sent men in ambush around Gibeah, and the people of Israel went up against the people of Benjamin on the third day and set themselves in array against Gibeah as at other times. So this is a tactic that we've seen before. They go to battle a couple of days, get the enemy expecting where they're going to be, and then cut off a piece of the force, send them around back the other side of the city, and have the smaller force sack the city when the soldiers come out to battle against the rest of the people. Verse 31 says, the people of Benjamin went out against the people and were drawn away from the city. And as at other times, they began to strike and kill some of the people on the highways, one of which goes up to Bethel and the other to Gibeah in the open country. They killed about 30 men of Israel. And the people of Benjamin said, they are routed before us as at first. But the people of Israel said, let us flee and draw them away from the city to the highways. And the men of Israel rose up out of their place, so this would be the force on the other side of the city, and set themselves in array at Baal Tamar. And the men of Israel who were in ambush rushed out of their place from Merageba. And they came against Gibeah, 10,000 chosen men out of Israel. And the battle was hard, but the Benjaminites did not know that disaster was close upon them. And the Lord defeated Benjamin before Israel, and all the people of Israel destroyed 25,100 men of Benjamin that day. All these were men who drew the sword. So the people of Benjamin saw that they were defeated. The men of Israel gave ground to Benjamin because they trusted the men in ambush whom they had set against Gibeah. Then the men in ambush hurried and rushed against Gibeah. The men in ambush moved out and struck all the city with the edge of the sword. Now the appointed signal between the men of Israel and the main ambush was when they made a great cloud of smoke rise up from the city, the men of Israel should turn in battle. Now Benjamin had begun to strike and kill about 30 men of Israel. They said, surely they are defeated before us as in the first battle. But when the signal began to rise out of the city in a column of smoke, the Benjaminites looked behind them, and behold, the whole city was up in smoke to heaven. Then the men of Israel turned, and the men of Benjamin were dismayed, for they saw that disaster was close upon them. Therefore they turned their backs before the men of Israel in the direction of the wilderness, but the battle overtook them. And those who came out of the cities were destroying them in their midst. Surrounding the Benjaminites, they pursued them and trod them down from Nohah as far as opposite Gibeah in the east. 18,000 men of Benjamin fell, all of them men of valor. And they turned and fled towards the wilderness at the rock of Rimmon. 5,000 men of them were cut down on the highways, and they were pursued hard to Gidom. 2,000 men of them were struck down. So all who fell that day of Benjamin are 25,000 who drew the sword, all of them men of valor. But 600 men turned and fled toward the wilderness of the rock of Rimmon, and remained at the rock of Rimmon for 4 months. And the men of Israel turned back against the people of Benjamin and struck them with the edge of the sword, the city, the men, the beasts, and all that they found. All the towns that they found were set on fire. Now the men of Israel had sworn at Mizpah, not one of us shall give his daughter in marriage to Benjamin. And the people came from Bethel and sat there till evening before God and lift up their voices and wept bitterly. They said, O Lord, the God of Israel, why has this happened in Israel that today there should be a tribe lacking in Israel? So the people of Israel have gone and made a decision to punish these people without the instruction of the Lord. Again, they sought some specific details from the Lord, but they didn't ask whether this was the right thing for them to do. But it's clear that their intention was not to wipe out an entire tribe of Israel. Their intention at the first was to just punish the city of Gibeah. And after they see that they have wiped out an entire tribe of Israel, they are going and weeping before the Lord because of what they have done. So there are only 600 men of the tribe of Benjamin left at this point. The women, the children, and the rest of the men have been wiped out. So they said, O Lord, the God of Israel, why has this happened that today there should be a tribe lacking in Israel? And the next day the people rose early and built there an altar and offered burnt offerings and peace offerings. And the people of Israel said, which of all the tribes of Israel did not come up to the assembly of the Lord? For they had taken a great oath concerning him who did not come up against the Lord at Mizpah, saying, he shall surely be put to death. And the people of Israel had compassion for Benjamin, their brother, and said, one tribe is cut off from Israel this day. What shall we do for wives for those who are left, since we have sworn by the Lord that we will not give them any of our daughters for wives? So the people have realized that they have entered into another foolish vow before the Lord. They are afraid of the consequences of breaking their vow, but they also don't want an entire tribe of Israel to be wiped out. So once again, they're doing something that they should not do, and they are plotting amongst themselves, seeking the counsel of men instead of the counsel of God in deciding what they should do to save this tribe that they have already wiped out because of their poor decision making. So they said to each other, what one is there of the tribes of Israel that did not come up to the Lord at Mizpah? And behold, no one had come from the camp of Jabesh Gilead to the assembly. For when the people were mustered, behold, not one of the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead was there. So the congregation sent 12,000 of their bravest men there and commanded, go and strike the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead with the edge of the sword, also the women and the little ones. This is what you shall do. Every male and every woman that has lain with a male you shall devote to destruction. And they found among the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead 400 young virgins that had not known a man by lying with him, and they brought them back to the camp at Shiloh, which is in the land of Canaan. So their intention with wiping out this entire encampment, which it doesn't give us numbers for how many people were killed, but they sent 12,000 people against it. So it wasn't insignificant. It was probably thousands of people, judging on the fact of how many, probably teenage or young adult women there were among this group of people. So they wiped out the whole place because they didn't come to help them destroy this other tribe. This is a domino effect of bad decision making that the people of Israel have engaged in because they're not consulting after the Lord. But they kind of accomplished their goal. They get 400 young women for the 600 men of Benjamin to marry. And then the whole congregation sent word to the people of Benjamin who were at the rock of Rimmon and proclaimed peace to them. And Benjamin returned at that time and gave them the women who they had saved alive from the women of Jabesh Gilead, but they were not enough for them. And the people had compassion on Benjamin because the Lord had made a breach in the tribe of Israel. Then the elders of the congregation said, what shall we do for wives for those who are left, since the women are destroyed out of Benjamin? And they said, there must be an inheritance for the survivors of Benjamin, that a tribe not be blotted out from Israel. Yet we cannot give them wives from our daughters. So again, this is not the instruction of the Lord, but the effect of their foolish and rash vow that they made before the Lord. They can't give them wives to marry, so they find a loophole. They said that, verse 19, behold, there is a yearly feast of the Lord at Shiloh, which is north of Bethel, on the east of the highway that goes up from Bethel to Shechem, the south of Lebnah. And they commanded the people of Benjamin, saying, go and lie in ambush in the vineyards and watch. If the daughters of Shiloh come out to dance in the dances, then come out of the vineyards and snatch each man his wife from among the daughters of Shiloh and go to the land of Benjamin. And when their fathers and their brothers come to complain to us, we will say to them, grant them graciously to us, because we did not take for each man of them a wife in battle, neither did you give them to them, else you would now be guilty. And the people of Benjamin did so and took their wives according to their number from the dancers whom they carried off. They went and returned to their inheritance, rebuilt their towns, and lived in them. And the people of Israel departed from there at that time, every man to his tribe and family, and they went out from there, every man to his own inheritance. And it concludes, once again, with the punchline that all of this happens because there is no king in Israel. And, I add this in there, the people of Israel are not acknowledging God as their king, and everyone was doing what was right in their own eyes. So this ends up a whole just cascade of terrible decisions that the people of Israel are making, and compounding one wrong upon another, to finally come to the solution that they want. I personally strongly believe that all of this is just a result of a straying away from a true relationship with God in the way that He laid before the people. God could have solved this issue very easily if the people would have simply come to Him and asked for His guidance on how the issue should be dealt with. But instead, they come and they make their own decision, and they decide that they are going to wipe out the city, and then they only come and ask God for, basically tactical advice on this decision. And all of this is just a snapshot for us from, the completion of the book of Judges. We went already through a cycle of, 13 ups and downs where the people walk away from the Lord, and then have a judge that comes back to save them from the people that oppress them because they walked away from the Lord. And then when that judge dies, they go back again away from the Lord. And, this is kind of the summation of it, showing us how bad things were in that day, and how far away and how quickly the people strayed away from God. So Lord, thank you for your instruction that you give us. Just pray that your words would be just in our hearts and in our minds, that we would live by them, and that as we go throughout our lives, that we would come before you for wisdom. You tell us that if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously without reproach, and it will be given. There's so many times, so many situations in my life and in all of ours that we need wisdom, and you also tell us that the way of a man seems right to himself, but it leads to destruction. And that's really what we saw in this tonight, that the way of these men led ultimately to their own destruction in many cases, and to the destruction of many others. So please just give us wisdom as we go throughout our lives, and help us to submit to your wisdom as well. Pray that you would help us each to be effective for your kingdom, and that we would all have hearts to be used by you. Amen. Okay, so did anybody have